Hello, everyone. Welcome to Amazing Skill Modelers Sunday Hangout. I am your host extraordinaire, Jack. And Amazing Skill Modelers is a Google Plus and Facebook community of skill modelers, reaching across all skill modeling genres and mediums, and to encourage friendships from around the world. And today, joining me are the diehards of the usual suspects. Just saying, this is just the three of us. This should be fun, even though it's fun too with a lot of folks coming in. But certainly, we're going to start with this to see what happens. And the live chat is open, so if you are watching live, which at this point there's two of you, so bring your questions, comments. All are welcome today. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and suggest. And I'd like to just mention that we do have community builds. So let me get this out of my screen here. I got to be not only host, but the control guy, man behind the curtain, too. We do have community builds. The wooden build, it's staring at me this way instead of that way because of my room being switched around for making room. We'll talk more about that later. And if you watch the Across the Pond, you know what I'm up to. And also we got the naval, a nautical build, as well as real space. And if you want to become community covers for either the Google Plus community or the Facebook community, and want to strike favor with me so you get picked, you know what to build. And so far I haven't, and I'm only announcing this on the Hangouts, not on the communities. Maybe if people see that they're being shared, but they're not building something. I don't know. I'm just thinking stupid. I guess I don't know. Anyhow, I'd like to mention also. I'll be sharing the. Yesterday I didn't have the community covers. Speaking of which, issued yet, and after the show, I think it was yesterday afternoon. I got it together and issued the community covers. But I'd like to also mention that maybe I should do a little more broadcasting of things that are going on out in the bigger world. And right now, the upcoming IPMS show in the States, the IPMS USA National Convention of 2018 will be held on August 1st in Phoenix, Arizona. So if you want to know more, go to ipmsusa.org. For an IPMS show. And something's a little closer to me, Jersey Fest. Our moderator, Dirk, lives very close. I think he goes every year, or at least shows up for a few hours every year. I'd like to make that to be a goal next year, not only do Wonderfest again, but to go to Jersey Fest next year. So I'm getting pretty ambitious to go to these shows. I got a little taste of it with Wonderfest, and I liked it so much. But going across the state of Pennsylvania is more expensive than it is going to Kentucky. The reason being, the way to get there is a toll road, and I understand it's $50 one way on the highway. So if I don't use the highway, I can go out of my way and save some money, but I would add time to my trip. It would probably take as long to go a shorter distance than to Kentucky. But Jersey Fest is there. I'd like to go next year. But this year is starting on Friday, September 7th to Sunday the 9th. That is the weekend after the American Labor Day weekend. So that's go to, where is this, jerseyfestfair.com for more information as well as tickets. So without further ado, let's get started. We've got some things to talk about. Jim tells me we do. I have no idea what it is. He gave me a hint. And I said, well, because you're keeping me in suspense, I'll keep you in suspense of something. But I'll probably spill the beans before you will, Jim. But anyhow, I'm going to start with the guy who's usually last anyhow. That would be Randall. Something like 12 midnight in the UK right now, and he's wide awake. Or at least he's pretending to be.
Oh, filled with caffeine, yeah. I'm preparing to go to bed.
Yes. Yeah. So how are you doing there, Randall?
Not too bad. Not too bad. I a nap earlier on. I don't know if that actually helped or not, but there you go. Yeah, well, like yesterday, I'm still plugging away. I finished this Moseley Viper engine for my
Yes.
World War One build,
Uh-huh.
plumbing, etc. Also been working on certain AMT figure.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
Darth Vader with the jockstrap.
Yep. The rather large seams to be filled around his posterior here. Thankfully, that'll be all hidden by the cloak, so not too worried about that. The only part of them so far that I actually have finished is the head. Regardless of what happens to the rest of the kit, at least I have a bust. As far as actual modeling concerned, as you know, before the race community build, finally getting the
Real space
modules together.
Yeah, that looks really good. That looks really good.
Can reach it without knocking anything over. Yeah. Fishing with my left hand, which is not always a good idea. The Soyuz part of the Soyuz test project.
Looks good.
That's coming along nicely.
He said that's a resin thing there. It's mostly resin.
Yeah, vinyl, more than resin, which
Vinyl.
especially as it's going to be at the top end of the stack, as it were.
It looks good. I think they're. Is there a reason why their command module is shaped like an egg and ours is like a pyramid? I guess.
The actual command, the equivalent of the actual command module in the Soyuz is this bit here in the middle. This is the bell. They're like the bell-shaped piece here. That's the bit that comes back. The forward part here is more like a small orbital workshop, cargo stuff like that they carry in this part. This part gets left in orbit or gets ditched. The rear part is the equivalent where the solar panels are attached, is the equivalent of the service module. And it's this middle part that the cosmonauts ride in when they're going into orbit and are still in it when they come back down. So it's a bit different. The Chinese and actually quite soon the Indian space program are following the Soyuz pattern rather than the Apollo pattern. But when they get Orion on the go, it'll look more like Apollo on steroids.
Yeah,
I think there's something like seating for 5 in the Orion spacecraft.
Yeah.
Is it like 2 and below them are 3 and they've got elbow room this time?
Yep, pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah, because Apollo's 3 in a row and they just hardly can fit next to each other, shoulder to shoulder.
I remember reading somewhere that the Apollo command module, the internal space was about the same as the British Mini car. That is.
Okay.
But obviously, with when they're in zero G, there's a lot more room to play with because you can move vertically, whereas in the Mini you're just sitting there.
That's true. That's true. But the docking port on the Soyuz has always been there. It wasn't added on for the experiment.
For the Apollo Soyuz test project, yeah, they did go with this free pedal.
They added it on.
But it's.
Well, my point is that the Soyuz was also used for orbital missions.
Oh yeah, it was. The Soyuz actually was originally designed for the lunar mission.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was supposed to be two men. One of whom probably was going to be Alexei Leonov, who, oddly enough, commanded the Soyuz half of the Apollo Soyuz test project. And the idea was the Russian equivalent of the lunar module was attached to the front end. If I remember rightly, strangely enough, they didn't actually directly access it inside the spacecraft. He had to do a spacewalk to go outside it
to get into it. Yeah.
So him and the other cosmonaut set off for the moon on top of this big N1 booster, which unfortunately for the Russians kept blowing up on the pad. I think the highest it got was something like about 100 feet before it blew up. When you have something the size of a Saturn V blowing up, it was quite spectacular. Something to do with the fact that they went with so many engines. It was very similar actually to what SpaceX are doing now.
Yeah,
they had like dozens of engines in the rear at the bottom end of it, and trying to keep all of them in sync. But in 1960s technology was nearly impossible. There was various oscillations built in, and the thing pretty much shook itself apart before it got too far. But,
I understand too during that particular mission that Apollo docked with the connecting module first because the Soyuz needed to do its own maneuvering because it's a delicate ship, more delicate than perhaps the Apollo was structurally, engineering-wise?
It could be, but the actual reason is that the Apollo actually had room in the
the Saturn V too.
The Saturn V to carry the thing. They carried the docking module in the same place as they carried the lunar module in the moon flights. This was the docking module. And there is no truth to the rumor whatsoever that they had the docking module because the Russians didn't want to be the female end of the docking mechanism. The module actually was because they, at the time, Apollo and Soyuz had two different air systems. The Apollo ran on pure oxygen at a lower pressure. I think it was something like 10 pounds per square inch or lower. And the Soyuz ran at pretty much near normal atmospheric pressure with oxygen and nitrogen. The same balance of air that we're breathing now. Yeah. Which in the long run was actually safer.
Yeah, long run it was safer and physiologically made more sense too.
It did, yeah. The only drawback with running on a pure, well, not a pure oxygen, but a oxygen-nitrogen mix is long preparation time they need before you can do a spacewalk.
Yeah.
Because it's not a case of just, it's not like Sandra Bullock did in Gravity, where she was jumping in and out of spacesuits and straight out the airlock. They have to the suits, regardless of who makes them, run on lower pressure than the spacecraft do. So it's like a diver coming up from a deep sea dive. you have to sort of like depressurize to avoid the bends. So you're talking at least 2 hours before you can, you know, after you get the spacesuit on, before you can step outside. So that's one drawback of the high pressure system. Whereas in the Apollo days, the suits and the spacecraft all operated in the same pressure.
Uh-huh.
So
I'm taking notes, actually. I'm taking notes out of what you're saying here. So
they needed the docking module so that the crews could actually meet.
Yeah. Yeah, the pressure and the mix have to be adjusted between the two. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. If that's the case.
So the cosmonauts didn't get the bends when they came out to meet the Americans.
Yeah, and I would think that the reason that would be not only another reason why the Apollo had to dock first with the connecting module is the connecting module probably if you're saying that the Russians had a much more of an atmospheric mix of breathable air at a higher pressure, then the connecting module needed to bring the American astronauts up to speed as far as pressure and the mix goes. Would that be a fair statement to make?
The Americans would probably have had it easier because they being on the lower pressure, had to go up to a higher pressure. But then, whenever they were meeting the cosmonauts in the module to get back into the Apollo spacecraft, then they would have to have repressurized or depressurized rather to get back into the Apollo. So it was tricky. Thankfully, by the time the shuttle was operational, the shuttle was operating and the normal oxygen nitrogen pressure mix.
Yeah.
So it made the International Space Station a lot easier to arrange. The whole thing runs on the same pressure, obviously. There were plans at one stage to have Soyuz dock with the Skylab space station. But in that case, again, they would have needed a depressurization module between the Soyuz and the Skylab because it ran the same pressure as the Apollo system. Fortunately, it never came to pass. Skylab tumbled out of the sky and bits of it crashed in Australia.
Yeah.
Actually, it was a passive-aggressive maneuver by the United States to bomb Australia. Although the Chinese space station just recently came down, but it hit the Indian Ocean. Am I right on that?
Yeah, I think it came down under slightly more control than Skylab did.
Yeah.
It was deliberately deorbited, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Usually when they deorbit these things, they aim for the Pacific because it's a bigger target. But the Indian is the next biggest one.
But the shipping lanes would narrow it down too, you know.
That's true, yeah. And you don't want the thing coming down the super tanker.
That would be pretty spectacular, wouldn't it?
Pretty spectacular. Yeah. Also a pretty darn good shot from orbit.
From orbit, that would be a pretty good shot. Oh, wow. Oh, would that be it?
That's for me, yep.
That's for you. Okay. And I'm going to share the oh, why is that doing that? That's weird. That's really weird. This was to share. Let's see if it's going to work this way. Open with. That Model T that you saw there, flash across the screen. I'm going to try to bring it up again. Is the Facebook community build by Damon Bruce. I think I'd be able to do this. No, I don't know why it's doing this. Oh, here it is. There we go. Damon Bruce, and he was very, very appreciative of the of having been selected for this photo, and apparently watches the Hangouts too. And he said that he loves this group so much. He's very inspired by it, and continues on to say, because I mentioned something yesterday, there was this debate about if black was the only color that Ford painted the Model T, which is true.
Yeah.
But he said if Ford painted the engine block or the engines green or black. I guess green would have been like the extras that you had to pay for. That was the luxury color, I guess. I don't know. I'm just making fun of that. But he said changes in the development of the paint and painting technology, combined with the fact that Henry Ford felt that people didn't care what cars looked like, only how reliable they were, caused some changes periodically with assembly line procedures. Some engines got painted, some did not. Some got a coat of green or black. As far as the bodies, black was the cheapest color to paint, and most of the parts were dipped instead of sprayed. New paint technology made other colors cheaper by the end of 1920, so Ford started offering color choices and combinations. Because there's that notion that Ford said to his customers, you can have any color you want as long as it's black. And I guess there was a reason behind that, was that it was the cheapest and they were dipped and not sprayed. And I guess with the automotive industry having been birthed commercially like this for the regular consumer, well, you know, need is certainly the mother of invention. And so there goes with car paints. I think this build is great. I really do. And the reason I selected it is because of the choice that was made to build it. Don't see too many cars like this being built. And certainly there's another thing about this. If Damon's watching, the spokes. The wheel rim, weren't they made of wood? I know these were tubed tires, meaning they had an inner tube.
Yeah.
And the wheel itself was spoked in hardwood, if I'm not mistaken. And also, Ford, having perfected the assembly line for building his cars, would have factories across the United States, and across now with North America and around the world. His parts were produced in other places and assembled mostly in Detroit. And to get these parts, he had to send them to the assembly line in wooden crates. And he began to realize that he's got all these wooden crates that he couldn't necessarily use again. And he invented, in a sense, not charcoal. He didn't invent charcoal, but he did invent a charcoal briquette and started a new company called Kingsford Charcoal. Kingsford was his wife's maiden name. Another piece of trivia. So he was not only able to make his cars cheap enough for his own employees to buy, which was a very big capitalist move, but he also gave them a day off so that they can go out to the country and barbecue. I thought he was genius, but anyway, that's the story I'm sticking with, and that's the reason why I picked it, so I can bloviate about Henry Ford. But anyhow, I want to share the other. Oh gosh, this is not working for me here. The other community build. Let's see. This is the Google Plus community. Open with. Why it's not working the way it's supposed to. Oh, poo. There it is. This is a Vampire British jet from World War II. Is that correct?
Well, it was designed in World War II, but it didn't see service until after the war.
Okay.
It was the second jet to get into RAF service. The first being the Gloucester Meteor. And I like this build especially because the markings are for 502 Squadron, which was based in Northern Ireland.
Ah, wow.
My home.
I'm going to give me his name right. I think it's David Kopielski, I believe is how he pronounced his last name. David had built this from a Trumpeter kit. It's a 1/48 scale. And there's other pictures that he posted, 3 more. And it's, again, I immediately recognized the World War II era on it in some sense, but it's a jet. It's not a prop airplane. The Germans had used a jet during the World War II, did they not?
They did, yeah. The Messerschmitt 262.
Yeah, okay. But this never got off the ground for World War II, but it did after the war.
The 262 was actually the first operational jet fighter.
Yep.
What was the speed difference between these? Do you know?
I don't know, Jim, was about 100 miles an hour.
Something like that, yeah.
Between 50 and 100 miles an hour.
And the jet would be, I would think, a little more than that.
Well, the jet was, yeah, sorry, I thought you were talking about between the jets and the props. I think the speed was pretty much the same between the likes of the 262 and Meteor.
Yeah. So the early jets were about the same kind of speed. They just didn't have enough compression internally to propel it faster.
Yeah, just a few miles difference between the two, mostly down to streamlining and stuff like that. The Germans pioneered the swept wing.
Oh, really?
With the 262. If you look at the plan form, the wings sweep back at an angle. They also went a different route with the jet engines. The German engines didn't last as long.
Yeah, because they couldn't use the exotic metals needed. They had to use iron. And the result was that they had lower lifespan on the blades and stuff like that.
Okay, so they didn't have the appropriate alloys just yet.
They also it was inline turbojets that they used too. So, and the British went with the Goblin. It was centrifugal in a thing where the air was fed in through exhaust or burner cans that were like in a ring around the engine.
Yeah.
Then blown out the back through the exhaust. So it was I wouldn't say probably a simpler method. I'm not sure.
Well, thanks, David, for posting this, and on the live chat, Mark is doing double time. He's not only listening in, making a comment every now and again, but he's also working on some work, I guess, schoolwork, I suppose. And he said, and I think he was remarking with Sandra Bullock jumping in and out of her spacesuit, and his response to that Gravity as a movie would have either been a very short or very long film. Depends on how you look at it. And George likes the T, the Model T, and he also said the Messerschmitt 262 was called the Swallow, like the bird.
That's correct. Yeah.
Wonder why.
Probably the swept wings.
And the fuselage design.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I think they had the Heinkel jet engines.
Hankel?
He says.
Yeah.
Hankel,
yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Hankel actually did a jet, twin jet engine design of their own.
Yeah.
But it was Messerschmitt with the 262 that got the contract.
Yeah, well, that engine was used through several platforms on the 262, the Arado bomber, and a couple other aircraft, the same engine.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. Actually, I forgot about the Arado bomber. First jet engine bomber, too.
Yeah.
Actually, one of the big drawbacks of the 263 was Hitler's insistence on it being used as a fast bomber.
Yeah, well, that was under Hitler's. Hitler insisted, he is a firm believer in bombers, so they had to retrofit the 262 to do light bombing, which Messerschmitt did not like the idea, but they did it because he was ordered to, because it threw his weight and speed calculations all out of whack.
There was not very many places that they could actually attach bombs to. I think it was like two pylons just behind where the nose wheel was. So it looked as awkward, you know. Yeah.
Well, would you consider the Vampire a World War II era jet, although it was not in service during the war?
Yeah, certainly.
Okay. That was certainly designed and produced. It just was never used. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's fascinating. That's absolutely fascinating.
The first flight of the Vampire, I think, was in 1943 or 44.
Yeah.
You know, a good year or 2 years before the war ended.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, there were prototypes flying, but there was no. It wasn't commissioned till after the war ended.
Oh. Go figure.
And the British government at the time, after the war, in a monumental fit of something or other, sold the jet design to the Russians on the proviso that it wouldn't be used in a fighter. Of course, the Russians, they took it apart, rebuilt it, built new ones, and put them into the MiG-15.
Yeah.
So,
well, there you have it. I mean, you've got these two model kits, the Trumpeter Vampire and the Model T. I don't believe Damon had mentioned the manufacturer of that kit. He might have. But hey, gives you a reason, if you're curious, gives you a reason to head on over to the Facebook community and find out. I think, you know what, it's somewhere down this. The thing I don't like about Facebook is because it's hard to find something specific, even though he just posted it maybe about almost a week ago. You have to go down pretty far, and I don't know.
It's
long and short of it,
pretty quick, yeah.
Yeah, it gets buried pretty quick. Still love the sound of Merlin engines and the Spitfires over any jet engine. That's what George says.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Well, it's either listening to CDs or the old vinyl LPs, you know.
The early British jets had this sort of like they were defined by this whistle that they produced.
Now they're defined as wines. Yeah. Okay. All right, Jim, what's going on? What are we talking about? How did you tell me this? What was it called? What were you calling it?
What I was thinking about, it came out of our the Saturday show, and I was just thinking, well, there was thing with Phil was working on that, doing with that battery pod, and he wasn't sure what the voltage were and all that thing, and I don't think he'd ever measured it. I think he just assumed what voltages he had coming out of it and stuff like that. And I thought, well, maybe we should kind of talk about what kind of because electronics are becoming more and more involved in our model building. And because of that, we're going to have to include, because things don't go perfectly, or we're trying to design something special, we're going to need certain test equipment in order to do that. Now, in order to do that, now it doesn't mean, let me get something up here. Now, it doesn't mean that you have to go to something like all this type of equipment. I mean, to break your bank that way.
Yeah, Jim. If everybody's wondering, Jim's alter ego is Dr. Frankenstein.
Yeah.
In a hospital?
No, you can. You can
diagnostic equipment.
Yeah, but no, you can do this with a lot more budget conscious.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because Mark says maybe Jimmy needs to hear more of this.
Yeah. Okay. Two things. One thing that's good that everyone should get is a half decent variable power supply. I guess 0 to 30 volt, 3 amp variable power supply. They're getting cheap. They're really getting cheaper now. And ideally, one that's got a voltage measurement on it and a current measurement, because that current measurement can help you decide what you need for a power brick to power what you're building and that.
Yeah, like my Millennium Falcon that I built, finished in, I guess, May. It was the power supply that told me, hey, I can use 9 volts because that's what I primarily work in.
Yeah.
And you were doing the math to add up all the milliamps of the LEDs I was using.
Yeah.
And you're saying, oh, you're getting awful close to 2 amps. So you should for 2. And sure enough, when I hooked it all up, it came to 2.2 amps.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, not 2.2 amps. It was 1.2 amps.
1.2 amps. So therefore, you could use a 2 amp brick to power.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly how that happened.
Yeah.
And sure enough, your math was it was pretty well spot on. I think it was maybe off about 200 millis because you said it's already an amp. You should get a 2 brick, as I recall, is what you said. And when I hooked up, it was 1.2. So yeah, I think it's a multi. It has multi-purpose too. A lot of modelers who are delving into, like Jamie, into let's see, is it called a voltage power supply?
Yeah, a variable bench power supply.
Okay, let's see if any.
There's all kinds of them out there. They'll vary in price from about maybe $100 up to $500. So I mean, because you don't need a $500 one. A doggone one that costs you $125 would probably do you perfectly fine.
Yeah. Let's see if I can bring something up here. All right, the one I have was one of these here. It's very simple. It's a very popular. I got it off of eBay, and if I recall, it was about 5 years ago, so I can't remember precisely.
Yeah.
What the price was, but I think it was like $70 to $80.
Yeah, you can get them for they're in around $100 mark for a 0 to 30 volt 3 amp supply, single source.
So here's something that has 2 current and voltage.
That's good. That one's a triple source one, but yeah,
triple source. Yeah, okay.
That's going to cost you about $400 for that. But
this is primarily what I have. It's very much like this.
Yeah, ones like that. Yeah, it's going to cost you in around about $125 or in around there for that. Yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong on $80 because if you're saying 120, maybe you're talking Canadian, not U.S. Because I think let's see, eBay.
Look up variable power supply.
Power. There you go. Power supply. Nope. Come on. W. I'll make it variable about the variable.
Under.
Oh, there you go. I got somebody calling for an L. Okay. Oh, look at that.
Oh, there's a 5 and one for $46.
Yeah. 5 amps.
It's a 5 amp 30 volt. Yeah.
I know the 30 volt is mine, but I don't know. Mine went up to 5 amps. If that mine is like that, but yeah, I guess $70-$80 wasn't too much off mark, as I remembered it. Because somebody gave me the address. I didn't shop for it. I just went around and
64. Yeah, that's pretty good prices, actually. Yeah,
$1,040.
That's a 5 amp 30 volt. Yeah, but it depends on the precision. You gotta check some of these because some of the prices are out of whack on some of these.
Oh yeah, very much so. Okay, go ahead. I digress.
Yeah. So that's a good starting point, and I think anyone that's doing the lighting and that's a definite need, even for checking your boards and everything else. Before you get your brick, you can know for sure how much current you need for your system, because everything you add, not only the lights, but if you're adding any control boards and all that, I think that also adds to the amount of current draw in your circuit. So that's important, and that one instrument will do both those jobs for you. Mm-hmm. Also allows you to experiment, because sometimes you'll find out, well, if I want to run this thing on 3 volts, but then all of a sudden you find out it's not bright enough. So then it's easy enough to correct your design and up your voltage from that point, because some people like to design around 3 volts to do their jobs, and sometimes that don't quite cut it. But yeah. The next piece of equipment that everyone should invest in is a good old multimeter. A good hand multimeter. They can range in price from about $20 for a half decent one for about between $30 and $60. You don't need to go spending hundreds of dollars on one. But the features that you should make sure that they have is it has a continuity and diode check, as well as a capacitance checker, because you're going to probably have to check capacitors somewhere along the line. So it's going to need to be able to measure the capacitors, and even like the resistance measurement. This is very, very handy, especially you start getting some of these small, like 1/8 and some of the quarter watts that are coming up blue now, and you can hardly read the color bands. So you need the meter to check the device to know what actual value it is, as well as your voltage measurements and that for diagnostics and stuff like that, and current measurements. So
yeah, it's interesting you brought that up, because I had a bunch of resistors on my workbench, and I had no idea. I can't read the colors against a blue background.
Yeah,
and because the bands on a resistor will tell you what the resistance is.
Yeah, the colors sort of get blurred with the blue epoxy. The old ones were all gold epoxy, cream colored epoxy, no problem. But they've gone to this blue epoxy now, and it's a pain. There's different ones you can get. Yeah, there's hundreds of designs. The one upgrade, I think you don't have to do it right away if you buy a new one, is get new test leads. As a rule, the test leads you get with these things with the cheaper meters are junk. So you're worth off to spend another $20 and get a new set of leads. You need leads with at least with alligator clips that come off.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got unscrew, which are not the ones I like, but you've got a sharp end test probe as well, and a alligator and the alligator clips. You need at least to have that.
I have the test probes on mine.
Yeah, but you should have both.
Yeah, you'd have to the test probes. You'd have to press down pretty firmly to make a good contact on.
Yeah, especially the cheaper test probes. The pins aren't sharp; they're rounded at the end, so they don't cut into where you're trying to measure very well. Whereupon the more expensive test probes they're actually sharp.
Here's one that's coming up on the screen here. Looks like it comes with both.
Yeah.
Voltmeter, ammeter, ohmmeter,
diode meter, but doesn't have a capacitance meter. Yeah.
It just doesn't have a capacitance. But the reason I stopped on this is because of this.
Yeah, and the other thing too is if you can get one that's a bonus extra, if it's got a transistor checker on it too, which can come in handy.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, so that's got a frequency. Oh, that one does have a capacitance meter on it.
Yeah, right at the top there, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So you got continuity and diode, and you've got capacitance. You got a frequency meter, and your amperage, and voltage and resistance there. So yeah, that would work fine.
Oh. Yeah. Cool. All right. Where did everybody go?
Where'd everybody go?
There we go. There. I lost a moment there because I switched screens. Yeah.
Now the next thing is sort of an add-on, especially when we're working with timer circuits and audio amps. Because sometimes you get you'll get an MP3 module that you'll want to put into your thing for sound, but not all of them come with an audio amp, so you got to add an external audio amp. You hook everything up, all of a sudden you got no audio out. So where is the problem? Is the problem with the MP3 modules, the problem with the audio amplifier? There you get into, because these meters are crappy at looking at voice and audio, okay? The response is too slow for audio. That's where you come in and where a scope comes into hand. Now you don't need an expensive one. You can get, now this is a little more expensive. This you can get into a hand scope. Okay. Or you can get a hand scope and then you can get into, let's just show you here. Like, get this up. And where are we here?
What is it called?
An oscilloscope, a hand oscilloscope. Now, if we go, there's my settings. Oh, here's my settings. All right. There. Change cameras. Okay. So now we get into scope. And if I use this for an example, you know, this is one of the timers from my test board, so you can get into idea of what we're looking at. Like, this is the output. Blink. And then we can go to auto.
How do you spell that?
What, oscilloscope?
Yeah.
OSCILLOSCOP.
Yeah. So if you look here, you can see, in this case, you can see the pulse output coming from the 5.5 timer. Now, you would never be able to measure that with your multimeter, but then you can see that with the scope. And then it was the same thing if it was an audio circuit, then you can see the audio. Example here. Go to audio. If you're looking at audio, get here. And you can see I've got a 1K tone put in here. What's the story here? Yeah, so you got a 1K tone. You can see the tone. Now, if that was the voice audio off the MP3, you could measure that audio coming out and then verify that's out of your board. Then your pro knows your problems in your audio amp. And so you can check your output of your audio amp. If it's not there, then the speaker. Because your output of your MP3 board is not going to have enough power that you can hook a speaker to. So you need to be able to some other way to measure it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you don't have to go that. These things can be had now fairly cheap.
Yep. I got something on. I'm just going to eBay. I mean, just getting some ideas.
Yeah, I've got a couple things here. Okay, so you can get like the good old DSO 130, which you can find all over eBay, Banggood.net. They go from about $26 to $40, and that will do everything that you want it to do. You know, or this one's like this. If you get lucky this way, you can go with this one. That kills two birds with one stone for $70, and you've got a multimeter and a scope all in the same package.
Oh, nice.
Okay.
Yeah, that's not a bad. If it does both, then it's not a bad price at all. Then.
No, and the same with this one. This one, look, this is about the size of an iPod. This one here for about $60. So there's a lot of these little ones. You can go cheaper if you want to build it up. You can buy the board kits and build them up if you want to. But that's it, because it's just very, very handy. You don't need to. I mean, these things all measure automatically and everything else. So they're easy that way, because there's like a digital scope that would cost you thousands of dollars 10 years ago. So with the abilities on these now. So it's a very handy item when you're checking audio and that through a circuit, even for measuring DC. Like if you're looking at the transistors, you're switching DC up and down. You can put the scope in there and see whether or not you check the base of it and see the signal, and then you go check on the collector and check to see if it's switching on the output. You know, just like when you were building that switching circuit for the Falcon.
Yeah.
You can verify its operation with something like this. You know, and it'll work perfectly fine for what you're doing.
All right. Wow.
So
George wants to know if you got Jacob's ladder in your lab.
If I got Jacob's, I don't have one. No.
I thought he was being smart. It's actually a thing. What's a Jacob's ladder?
Oh, it's one of those. It's a Tesla device. If you like sit there and it puts a high voltage spark going up a couple of wires, climbs up the wires.
I thought it was for some practical use.
The sort of thing you see in the mad scientist laboratory sort of thing.
Yeah.
Ears up like rabbit ears and the sparks going up between them.
Right.
Yeah.
But I want a giant lava lamp in my workspace. A giant one, meaning bigger than like at Home Depot, you can get one for, I think, 14 inches. I think this is like 28 inches tall, and it's about maybe this big around at the base.
Yeah.
Well, George says, too bad that you don't have a Jacob's ladder in your lab. And does it really make that sound that goes zzz, zzz?
Yeah.
Or is that something just in the movies?
Yeah, I think it does make that noise, yeah.
I know there's like the plasma globe, but it's not interesting if you're not touching it.
Yeah.
There you go. Look at that.
Voink. Okay.
Okay. More?
Just one more thing. Again, going back to tracing an amp. Another thing you can get these really cheap now. They're really simple boards. You get a board for $10 or something like that, and you can build yourself a little tone generator.
A tone generator.
Yeah, let's bring this back here. Point, 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 point. Yeah.
And pray tell, what is a tone generator?
Exactly what it is. They can generate a frequency, from this one goes up to 3K. This one I built 20 years ago. But you can buy little kits for doing that. You don't need to spend a lot of money on it. And it generates, just gives you an audio tone that you can run into. You inject, say, the input, the amp, and you get it out type thing.
Oh, wow.
Just a tone source. That's an additional. It's not one that you would need all the time, but it's a handy little diagnostics tool.
Mm-hmm. So there's one thing from all the things that you're saying. Here's something of importance right here. Back scratcher, but you can use it scratching your head, wondering what the heck are we talking about here? You know what? I bought this on Amazon. There was a set of 5. I had one downstairs, one up here, one at work, and one in the car. And I had to give one to my mom, so I'm short a back scratcher. They're not in the same category, I suppose.
No.
I just go the balloon method and scratch my back on a doorpost.
Well, that's true. You can do it that way, but it's so inconvenient when you're sitting.
Yeah. So that's pretty well it as far as the basic equipment I think that a modeler could use for helping to diagnose their circuits and stuff like that and their models.
I like the way you describe that as basic. To me, that is, as George was saying, the mad scientist laboratory.
It all depends on your perspective. Yeah.
It does depend upon your perspective, but I would say the first two, the power supply and the multimeter, if you are going to do LEDs, those two you got to have. I mean, it makes life a lot easier, and the power supply you'd use all the time. The multimeter you would use in very specific instances, which do crop up, and it's like one of those things, if you don't have it sitting around, then you wish you had one sitting around. The other two, I think, is more sophisticated. The oscilloscope, velociraptor,
the oscilloscope,
and the
pocket oscilloscope,
and the tone
generator for a function generator,
those you're getting in a lot more sophisticated, such as the audio, like your MP3 cards that people would play. And it's really interesting. I've never had the need to do sound effects, but certainly if you're going to do sound effects, I'm just not an audiophile. I'm just not a person who likes peace and quiet, I guess.
Yeah, but more and more modelers are adding the sound effects to their models.
That's very true. That's very true. I would say the oscilloscope will be of importance, particularly if you're doing sound.
Yeah.
The other one, I think you're getting into more of a sophisticated realm. But something though, I'm very much the layman compared to you, having been you for a living was a radio engineer, and I know some. I can talk intelligently about electronics when it pertains to models, not so much to radio, but for these sorts of things. And one of these days, I'll probably spend some time learning Arduino, and going from there. But from that point, I don't know where electronics would go in skill modeling other than just those basics. And those, got to admit, these things are very, very basic.
Well, we're getting into a lot more, especially with the Arduinos and that in there now. Now we're getting into automation in with the models now. So
automation, well, yeah. I mean, when I went to Wonderfest, there was an R2D2 there, full size.
yeah,
That was being radio controlled, though. It was a radio controlled device, but it did have the servos to spin its head around, and of course the motors to make it move. But there are some scale modelers that are getting into robotics. Some 3D printers I've been watching are like doing things, but not electronic things, but they're doing things to make parts.
Yeah.
To 3D, because you can like get a file to 3D print a hand, and it's just up to you to put the servos in there to make the hand operate.
Yeah.
But that's now you're getting into robotics and automation, animation. I don't know, how would you say that? Animation, automation,
animation.
Yeah. And how about your sub? Have you fully animated your sub yet?
You mean my Starship?
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's going to be animated to the point where I can rotate it inside the shadow box. So that's using a servo mechanism to rotate that inside, so you can see the back and the front of it inside the shadow box.
Right. Okay. So you're still working on that? Are you?
I'm still working on that. It's sort of put aside right now because I've got my annual birthday build coming up. So.
Oh yeah, that's right. Your sister's birthday build.
Yeah.
George also said, "Don't forget the B9 robots." Yeah, it was like 10 of them at the Wonderfest, and they were all. There was one and there was also in one of my videos. There was also the Jupiter 2 instrument panel, the cockpit panel.
Mm-hmm.
That was automated, but that was automated in a very primitive sense. Basically, that transparencies kind of like doing this across each other that were backlit to give you those effects.
The effect of the radar screen, yeah.
Right, and of course blinking lights and all that. It was actually very interesting, but there was only one of the B9 robots that did move about and did turn.
Mm-hmm.
And they were working on the logistics. The guy was saying on the arms.
Yeah.
There was another guy there that did a radio-controlled movable B9, but it only went in a straight line, and it was more of a costume for somebody to get inside and do the arms.
Mm-hmm.
The others, I don't know much about because the builder wasn't there to talk about it. But I found that very interesting in the sense that when it comes to the sci-fi builders and maybe the horror genre builders, the figure builders, they're more likely going to automate their builds, I think.
Yeah.
Because that's part of nerddom. I mean, if you did want to do automation with a car, you get into RC, and that's it.
Yeah.
Now, I don't think a car is robotic.
No.
Robotic means that it takes on the movements and anthropomorphic movement, something that we do, as a physical function. A car, turns and goes forward, goes backwards. It's just a machine. So RC is that. I mean, I think that technology, of course, is advanced, but I don't think you can compare that cleanly to robotics. What do you think?
Not totally. I mean, there's some people are blurring the lines between scale modeling and RC, especially if you look at the RC tanks. If you see the RC armors coming out, those guys are going to extreme detail in their models as well as the automation in the tanks.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a sort of a crossover between scale modeling and RC in that case.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that certainly would extend the time you spend on the build.
Yeah.
It took me a year to do just 100 and not
I
quite
was watching a video there of this guy built this 1/3 scale Tiger tank.
Oh, wow.
Third scale, you could nearly sit in that one.
Almost, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that'll be almost like a soapbox derby car.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This thing was huge, yeah.
There was one that bought a paper. Is it the paper one that you're referring to, or is this something different?
What, that tank?
Yes.
No, it's built. It's metal. It was all built metal parts and machine parts. Yeah. He turned all the wheels and shaped all the sheet metal and everything else.
I bet he had a CNC machine.
Yeah, probably.
He had to have had. Yeah, I think CNC and 3D printing, and I think there's a lot of modelers are resisting and are actually vehemently resisting. But that's the same that happened between the birth material, which is wood,
yeah,
and whenever plastic or injected molding plastics came out, like styrene, there was a resistance to go to it. I think that there was one professional that I won't name his name, but he called it soulless modeling.
Yeah.
Like modeling has a soul. But I think, though, if you are designing and producing parts or even an entire model, that's just as good as any other, I think.
Yeah.
It certainly is an answer to an everyday guy like you and I who can't afford a $30,000 plastic injection machine to mold things. And then you got to make the dies and whatnot. I mean, that's
even with the 3D printing and that for model, you're still making the pieces, and you still got to put them together.
Well, yeah.
So I mean, what's the difference between making them on the 3D printer and then pulling them out of a box?
You know what it is? I think it's taking the cellophane off the box is what matters. And if you're 3D printing, you're not taking any cellophane off. But I've watched enough videos. I don't have any practical experience yet on 3D printing, but all the videos I've seen is that it certainly is not just a hobby onto itself, very much so, a hobby onto itself. But I think that when I went to Wonderfest, there is certainly a curiosity interest to use these things to supplement their model buildings. Because I went to two little classes, I guess.
A big one is getting commonly used now is the figures.
Yeah, figures. Yeah,
it's becoming a big one.
Figures now. You get a sculptor, and a sculptor makes them. Somebody can make the sculptor doesn't necessarily has the artistry to do the molds. Sometimes they do.
Yeah.
But they will have somebody who has the artistry to do the molds for their figures, and they produce their resin or vinyl kits from them. And the whole thing about that class, which was an hour long, how to recognize here's a good one, an authentic garage kit and a copycat. And if there are ways to see the difference, because if you've ever taken a copy of a copy of a copy back in the old days, if you did that, eventually a copy will become unreadable, become illegible.
Yeah.
These days, you'd have to run quite a few generations to lose the integrity of the original. The technology's improved so well, but when you're talking about garage kits,
who are taking castings off of an original, to make it. You're going to get deficiencies.
Well, yes, you are, but he was explaining that just like I said, you got the sculptor, and then you got the person who makes the mold of the sculpt.
Yeah.
Sometimes the same person, sometimes not. But certainly the procedure that you would use to make a mold of a sculpt is very specific. It's almost like a thumbprint in a sense, that if you took that and made your own mold, you wouldn't necessarily follow the same line of thinking of making your mold, and it comes out not very good. And then there's the flashing. There's the parts that don't fit. There's like, they've got two sides. They're shifted.
Yeah, they don't fit properly and stuff like that. Yeah.
Because good garage kits you would pay good money for, and you don't have to be particularly a pro to figure it out. You just need to spend time looking at it. And of course, this guy discouraged buying things on eBay other than from a reputable
dealer. Yeah,
dealer or the seller, the actual creator of the figure.
Yeah,
not even go there. And it seemed like there's almost like this subculture with the figures, because I'll probably never do a figure, but it just, from the outside looking in, it almost seemed like there was a subculture that you can tell people's work just by looking at it. It's almost like there's like some painting that was discovered in
artistic style. Yeah.
And then they say it's a Monet, and then you've got these people who are experts on Monet come in and see and authenticate it to see if it is a Monet or is it a knockoff. But people become that among the figure communities like that. It's very interesting. So anyway, I don't know how I kind of got distracted.
Deviated, yeah, off.
Yeah, well, anyway, it's all very interesting stuff, and I would encourage anybody to, like Wonderfest, if there is a show. I don't know if IPMS shows are good places for this, but I know Jersey Fest would be like Wonderfest, that I'm sure they're going to have symposiums and whatnot to expand on. And the other thing that I took was a 3D printing one. I thought the gentleman was above me, way up there.
The way you described it, he was with the wrong crowd, as far as I was concerned.
Yeah, I just wanted to know it as a hobby, not as a profession. I think that's where I was coming to.
Yeah.
Here, automation, animation, however you want to put it. From yesterday, I started talking about the reason I don't have my workbenches. If you didn't see it across the pond, my other half sold my workbenches on a yard sale. I got the money for it. What's interesting is he charged $5 extra, and I'm like, why? It's like, well, $5 is a finder's fee, of course. So he got $10 out of the whole deal, and I got $50. I guess that works out to having an agent. But anyway, commission. Well, he's like doing a kitchen. It's like every dollar counts. It is $10, I guess. Guess you can buy yourself some cabinet hardware with it. But anyway, I had this big open space here, and I wanted to do this and build as I was saying yesterday, a workbench that is, everything has a spot for it. I don't have to put the glue gun or the solder iron on the floor because my workbench is cluttered and I got to use these things and I can't, because you get the message. And I wanted to build something that would have a spot for everything, and automation or animation, however you want to can put it, came into mind because I come across this video on YouTube. This guy says, those TV cabinets, the flat screen TV comes up out of the cabinet and then just disappears behind it. And he used it for his computer, his keyboard, his screen. and he bought these parts off of eBay and these little 12-volt motors. Basically, his thinking was using 3D printer, like timing belts and gears, and he put this thing together. And I got to say, it was genius to use a 2-position switch to turn it on, and then it's when you turn it off all the way, it's the polarization goes opposite, so the motor works in the opposite direction. And he had these like momentary switches that shut it off, so you just have to flip it on to make it come up, and then it'll stop automatically at the top, and then you switch it all the way down to the bottom of the switch, and then it comes down all the way. A momentary switch shuts it off, and it was actually quite genius. I was like really fascinated with it. As soon as I saw that, I'm like, I gotta sell my workbenches. And so, long and short of it, I thought, if you remember, the thing behind me was a rack I made for my Vallejo paints. The thing is pretty heavy. Those two things are pretty heavy. I think combined are at least 10 or 15 pounds. They don't look like it, but they're pretty heavy. I think it's because of the Model Master paints with the glass jars is what's causing the weight. So I needed something that would be big, like nice and wide, and very shallow, just like this gentleman was showing about his computer screen, like TV screen things are. But I needed the power to be able to lift these things. So I come across this. If you look up linear actuators or linear actuator desks online, you're going to see a whole bunch of videos about this. This basically is a motor down here. Let's see, motor down there, and a long tube, probably threaded, pushing up a rod. And that's the right direction, and it's also motorized on the way down. So it can push and pull. It can do both. So, and also I looked up the mechanics of scissor arms, like a architect's lamp. Maybe if I can see if I can get a shot of mine right here. Okay, let me twist it around a little bit here. This is actually in a sense a scissor arm. So if you incorporate one of those actuators in it, you can make things go up and down. So that's all I've been doing today, was taking my little floor plan and deciding which side of my L-shaped workbench am I going to automate and lift. Because like I said, I want to draw things and I want to store my drawings flat. I thought of doing drawers, but that wide, and it's going to be about this deep. Ain't going to work. Might as well lift the whole thing, and then the cubby hole will be underneath. So these are the kinds of things that I'm thinking of doing. And there'll be a spot for my Vallejo paints, a spot for my glue gun, my solder iron, all behind a trap door. So those are the things that you need close at hand, but it has a place to live when I'm not using them. So that's all I did. I'm not doing any modeling. I'm just doing this. I went to Home Depot today and spent $80 just to look around. So I bought some lumber, bought a sheet of plywood to start at least experimenting. Right now, I have yesterday I mentioned that I didn't take pictures of my sawhorses. I was going to say I'm going to take pictures of it and show them tonight. This is a pretty specialized sawhorse to double as a workbench too, because I don't have space in the basement to have a permanent one. I don't need a permanent one. I just need one when I'm actually working on woodwork, which is every other year. And I bought a table saw, a really cheap one, but it needs a stand, so I'm going to use sawhorses as a stand. That's pretty much it. And now I'm thinking of making cabinetry downstairs in the basement to hold these things with drawers that you can push them and pull out. I don't know when I'm going to get back to the hobby. Just like your electronics there, Jim, I'm investing in woodwork.
Is this going to be your new hobby?
I've always liked to work with wood, not in the sense of modeling, but in the sense of making things. I can't say that I got a couple of step stools here that I made years ago that I still use. One is for painting. It's all covered with paint, like if you're painting a room. But that's pretty much all I have right now that I've made. But certainly, yeah, I guess, when I was remodeling houses, that's just kind of been a spin-off. And if I had the space, I can probably do kitchen cabinetry.
Mm-hmm.
But hi, Bob. Another wonderful wonderful day at work. Sorry to hear that. Probably can adapt the power window regulator. That should be interesting. I'll look into that, George. I was even looking at winches. You know what a winch is?
Mm-hmm.
Boats usually have them. You crank them to usually the rednecks have them on the front of their bumpers on their trucks to pull their buddy's vehicle out of the creek because they were drunk one night and drove into a body of water. I got to winch the vehicle out. That's a winch. I was even thinking of doing a winch, but I did find a guy who did a desk with a winch. God, the thing was noisy. Clinged and clacked, and it's awful. I don't think I want that, being that I'm not much of an audio person. Rather hear the whine of a motor not working very well. But that's where I'm at. Nowhere in the hobby. But this is a sacrifice I got to make in the summer because I can't do this stuff in the wintertime. But once it gets done, I'm gonna go. Definitely have a lot of ambition to do a lot of like 3D printing as well as scratch building. I just need a workbench that works for those ends. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. And I hope to, like, next couple of weeks, be able to show something developing behind me. So far, I've been coming up with all these ideas and finding things that will do it. And it's been a long day. I just spent the whole day thinking. It didn't do anything downstairs. Yesterday, I was making the stand for my table saw. Got exhausted. That's probably didn't do anything today. I got really tired from doing that. Anything more? See, nobody else showed up.
Yeah, we got no other contributors.
I guess. So I'm going to do some screen share because I didn't do any yesterday. And yes, Ken, if you're still on the live chat, Ken. You're an absolute joy to watch in a hobby. Ooh, here's something. Before we get to Ken stuff, I just noticed this. Tedious and very nerve-wracking. In the end, it will look awesome. David Kopilski said this about... It's coming up. Oh, man. See, you know what? I don't want to see this because I have this kit. And I like to light things. It's already going to be a pretty extensive kit to just build. Right here.
Oh.
Ah.
Yeah.
It's aircraft carrier. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, shit. I did not need to see that. That is David's.
Yeah.
Maybe I should change that. Maybe I save this. Dave, if you're watching, I know you'll be watching because I'm going to ask you to do me a favor. Post more pictures.
He says in the end it will...
There's feedback coming back, Steven. Yep, I need more pictures. Oh man, that's beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah, the funny thing is, he says, but in the end, it will look awesome. It looks awesome as it is.
Yeah.
Which end?
Yeah. Looks like we're looking at it the minute.
Oh, that does look good, though. That does look good. Makes for a nice target for the enemy, too.
Yeah.
But I have the CVN Enterprise, the 350 scale. I think that's what this is. Let's see. There's an attachment as a comment.
I think if you were going to build the hangar decks on those things, you would need to like them. Oh, Moore's Republic Star Destroyer up there.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was a post by Mark Dunmore and his fiber optics and his Star Destroyer, which in itself is awesome too, very much so. And so, and then Mark said, "Oh wow, he just made me want to build a naval ship." I don't know, Mark. You barely survived a tank. I don't know how you're going to survive a naval ship. So what I wanted to get to, this is what Mark is doing here. This is the bridge section of his Star Wars Star Destroyer. That's what he's doing there. What was I going to do? Shoot. You know what? There goes a steel sieve of a memory. I came on here for a reason. Got distracted with that. Oh, okay. Liam was also bringing up some things about Revell.
Yeah.
Doing a 350 Enterprise. Okay, that's kind of weird.
Might be a reboxing of the Polar Light stuff.
Yeah.
We're not sure.
Yeah, there was the Ken Skiffington one. Okay, here it is.
Yeah.
He's doing the Terminator ship. And when I first saw this, the engine exhaust here, I was thinking of when you go to a home show at a convention, and they'll have like fire pits, and they'll have these like silk rags blowing out off of a fan with LED lights. I thought that's what this was.
Mm-hmm.
But this is the fiber, the polyfiber.
Yeah, the polyfill. Yeah.
I wonder if the model is big enough to put a couple of fans in there, computer fans of some sort. Create the effect I'm thinking of.
I don't know if you can get computer fans small enough for it.
I've seen 3-inch, a 2-inch. I think I can probably find, but this is probably smaller than that. This is probably a 1-inch.
Yeah.
But certainly, I don't know Ken as the one to light his models. I could be completely wrong. There's a nice angle of the engines right there. But he certainly did a phenomenal job, though, just the same.
Just getting those nav lights and those wing, the tail planes there.
Yeah.
I know. That has to be fiber optics.
Very tiny SMDs, maybe. Because they're very bright for fiber optic. I don't know. You'd have to put a very tight angle on the fiber optic to get it to run back down the wings, tail plane.
I'm sorry. I'm stuck on Stephen there. I wasn't paying attention. All right. Did you fix the feedback, Stephen?
Yeah, I hooked up my headset. How are you guys doing?
I thought you live in Arizona, correct?
Yeah, I live down in Tucson.
You look more like from Birmingham and not Tucson. What's going on behind you there, mister?
Well, I was born in the UK, so
Oh.
I moved here when I was 1 year old, so that's why I don't have an accent.
I see. Yeah, Sutton is definitely a British name, very British.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, all my mom's family is from over there. So.
Oh yeah, where's over there?
Colchester, Essex.
Oh, I know approximately where it is. I can probably throw a dart at it and get within a few hundred miles.
Yeah, it's real close to Felixstowe and what are some of the other Clacton on the Sea, those areas.
Mm.
I don't know. I just thought you were somebody from Britain because you're certain waving their flag.
Union flag, RAF 100. Yep.
Yep.
Cool.
Yep. I'm a proud American, but I was also born in England, so I guess I'm a dual citizen. So.
And you know the kind of Hawkeye I am. Right over your right shoulder, I see the edge of the screen. There's something very interesting showing its ugly little head over there up on the wall. It's with a colorful G right there.
Yes.
Up on the wall. It looks like, yeah, if you move your camera a little you see see, I'm a hawk. I recognize my shop card anywhere, even if I see the G.
Yeah, I hang it proudly. I've been watching your show from the very beginning. I travel a lot for work, so I'm watching the show when I'm in my hotel room and I'm not home, but I happen to be home this time. So.
Oh, nice. So I'm glad you were able to make it and let us know that. Watch.
Yeah, I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of you guys. Even my wife will watch it on the TV downstairs, and she'll say, "You know, those guys are a little more mature than most of the others. It's kind of fun to watch them."
Wow, we got her snowed really well.
Yeah.
Mature, but there you go.
Yeah, I know I'm friends with you, Jack, on Facebook, and I'm friends with with Liam. I love his photography that he puts out there. Or Randall, I'm sorry, Randall. And I'm also friends with Liam. I haven't seen him in a while, but yeah. So
he's busier in retirement than he was when he was actually working full time. He says he says he couldn't just like here when you retire, you retire. I mean, if you choose to work, it's a choice. But he didn't have much of a choice. He still works, but he's officially retired, and he works a certain number of hours, and they're phasing his. I think they're phasing him out or his job out or something. That the reason he still has to go to work, but it's something like. I think he said like 10 or 20 hours a week, if that.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, you still got to keep busy when you're retired, I think. So there's no harm in that, I would say.
And if he wants to go to the mainland UK, to England, he can basically go whenever he pleases from what he says. So he's busy. He's a busy guy. He's got 2 young adults as kids, and he does a lot of stuff. Randall's just busy with us all the time.
Yeah.
Getting led astray at strange times of the night.
Yes.
Yeah. with your photography, it's great. It's fantastic.
Oh, thank you.
Now, you live close to Belfast, right?
60 miles north of Belfast.
Okay. Yeah. I had an uncle that lived there many years ago.
On the north coast.
Yep. I had an uncle that lived there many years ago. He worked at the DeLorean factory.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Actually, it was his son that worked there because my uncle was a lot older than that. He was with the British 8th Army, and he was a very interesting man, very, very smart, intelligent individual. But he was a Brit living in Northern Ireland, so. But he had malaria. We didn't know it. He came over to visit, and he had an attack, and just scared the bejesus out of my mom. She didn't know what was going on. I had to go in there and undress him and everything in the dark. And he went ahead and admitted to us that I caught malaria over there during the war, and you know, that never goes away.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's with you for life when you catch that thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, but he fought with Montgomery, you know, so very interesting stories that he had. But
yeah.
That Western Desert, yeah.
Yep. Then I had another uncle in England that worked at the tank factory that built the was it the Scorpion tanks?
Vickers?
Smaller one? Yeah, the smaller. Yep, I believe so. The Vickers up there in Andover, that area.
I used to visit in-laws that live in Newcastle upon Tyne a lot. Not so much recently, but a couple of times I would sort of partly deliberately get lost in the driving back, so I could drive past the Vickers works because they had the Challenger tank sitting outside. I love driving past and looking at that thing. Some of these days I'm going to get a model of it.
Yeah. He took me there, but that was way back in 1977. I was just a teenager still, so I have vague memories of it, but I thought it was pretty cool. One of the most impressive things I saw back then that I remember was the Imperial War Museum in London. So, you know, thoroughly walked through that, all aspects of the Imperial It was just awesome. So, but you know, and when I always thought of England when I was a teenager, because I was a model builder back then, I always thought, oh, I can get some really cool kits in England, because that's, you know, all the British modeling magazines were pretty cool back then, or the I don't know, just the whole aspect of it was, you know, was what I thought was cool about it. More so than having the model shops in the U.S. Seems like the U.S. didn't have a whole lot, you know, of the imported stuff, whereas England had all the imported stuff. But, you know, just a lot different when you're a teenager as compared to being an adult now, and now everything's on the internet. So
I think it seems to have gone the other way now. The model shops in the US seem way more interesting.
Yeah, that's true.
I can't find one in my area that's worth going to. They're all model train. Like there's a couple that can go for model trains, but they wouldn't have anything I would be interested in as far. Well, I do watch modeling train channels on YouTube. I get some ideas, particularly with the electronics aspect of it, because model trains got really big in electronics.
Yeah, you would think the opposite. Being where you are on the East Coast, and how many the population being more dense there, that you'd have more model shops, you know. And I thought that too, because I made a lot of trips to Rhode Island, and I did go to quite a few there, but they were just small little shops. But you know, I've been to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, but you're in Philadelphia, or?
No, Harrisburg. I know who. GM. I bought things from them on the internet. They stopped selling because I don't know if this is true or not, because of the internet taxation thing going on right now. I don't think they're equipped to collect. So it's a brick and mortar shop. I'd like to go visit them, but like I said, the turnpike costs a lot of money. It's like at least $50 to go from one side of the state to the other. As I was mentioning earlier about Jersey Fest, which I like to go to, and that would be one of the stops I would make, is to that hobby shop. In fact, I'd probably I only been to Harrisburg once, and I'd like to go to check it out, because apparently when it comes to all the state capitals, Pennsylvania has the most architecturally beautiful ones. And I'm always told that if you ever get to Harrisburg, to go to the Capitol, because it's absolutely beautiful. Well, of course, they tax us out the nose. We better have a nice Capitol. We're getting some fun money, you know.
Yeah, that's true.
But the hobby shop that you're talking about is there, and I can't remember off the top of my head the name of it, but it's close by, close to Capitol.
Yeah, I can't remember it either. Yeah.
But, I bought a lot of things from online. They would sell like lots of a kit. Like a lot would have like a China packed box of models, but it's all 12 of the same thing.
Yeah.
I got actually tempted a few times to do that and just try to resell them. But when I did my research, they're dogs. That's why they're selling the entire crate. Because they're dogs. They can't sell them one by one. Frankie B from Scale Modeling Channel, he was on a live chat too, and I think he's gone. I hope you're still around, Frankie B, because I'm going to be sharing something you posted on the Facebook community. Not Facebook, the Google Plus. Google Plus.
Nice.
This is the engine block wired up.
I'll be right back.
Okay. Maybe you got to get a little bit of focus here. I don't realize that his camera is so sensitive to. Oh, we got the copyright there nicely. Oh, there you go. This is a nice picture of the struts and the exhaust rear axle. Very nice.
Mm-hmm. Oh, he did a nice job on that.
Yeah. Very, very nice.
All the different. I like the way he's discolored the exhaust there. The heat staining of the exhaust.
Yeah.
Out of the silencer box.
Let's see. Oh, right up in here.
Yeah.
That's a pretty big detail. There was a picture here that was a pretty good one for the wiring, and I'm not sure where it went to. I thought that was it, but it's not it.
Sorry, Bat. I had unexpected guests show up.
Oh.
Yeah, my daughter's in the hospital, and so she just got put in this afternoon. So.
I hope she's okay.
Yeah, she'll be okay.
Good. Good. Here it is. I knew it was here, Frankie B. See, I have a very low budget. I have no budget doing these shows. Oh, look at that. The lights down enough so you can see my street. Look at that. Look out the
window. Daylight.
Yeah.
8:45 here in the evening, so it's going to be dark in a half an hour. There it is. This is what I wanted to show yesterday, actually, on the Across the Pond. I'm just fascinated. I don't know. I'd like to find out more on how to wire. Not how to, but the actual what is used for the wires. I did a 16 scale.
Yeah, he may have bought the distributor.
Yeah.
So with the wiring on it. So then you just got to wire it up to the plug location, because you can buy those distributors already wired.
Yep, that's what that looks like.
There's a UK company called littlecars.com that do distributor wiring. It comes in stock lengths, so you cut it, you trim it to
what you require. Yeah.
Some of it they even do the braided wiring or cabling for cars as well.
Mm-hmm. Here, I got something to show. Maybe it'll show up on camera. This is the 16 scale Spider.
Mm-hmm.
And the body's not attached.
Yeah, that's that Cobra, right? That's nice.
It's a Cobra, yeah.
Yeah.
And this is the first engine that I had wired.
And that came with a kit, right?
No, it did not.
It did not. Okay. Nice.
It did not. And I can't remember what I used.
Don't almost looks like regular electrical wire, just with the insulator still. Excuse me.
Like the telephone wiring, or
yeah,
it does have a stiffness to it, and I think you're right. It may be copper wire. I did take pictures of it discreetly, not in the model, but discrete on its own. And the glue is coming apart. This is I don't know. I never finished this. This was supposed to be a lighted one, and this is one of those projects that'll never get done. Well, I did this as one of my first car builds, so I didn't know what I was doing.
sounds like me actually. Yeah.
But the 25 scale, I have not wired yet. I have not wired it. Gosh, there we go. Just so you can see my face. But I'd like to know what is used for 25 scale, because I'll probably get more into that. That makes it interesting. It's not that hard to do. I don't remember that being that hard to do. But some guys like really get into what points the distributor goes to which spark.
Yeah, all the wiring and all the plumbing and everything else. Yeah.
Yep.
Everything in its order. Yeah. Let's see if there's any. I just when the modeler does this, I'm just fascinated by it.
Well, you usually find the information. It's all published, so you can probably find it for any particular motor.
There's some good modeling books that actually show that too.
You know, when
I'm a lazy modeler. I'm not going to do that.
You know, when I did my Lotus Super 7, I did try to replicate the wiring in that, but I used a lot of lead wire. At least it has the, unlike copper or anything like that, when you bend it, it stays put. It doesn't spring back quite so much. Trying to find a picture of it somewhere.
Well, you need to show something, Stephen.
Okay.
You got to pick anything up and show it off.
I've got a lot of shelf queens because I hardly have time to work on stuff. But this is a Warhammer kit I've been working on.
Ah, okay.
So I put an ambush camouflage on it. That was kind of fun. I'm not done with it yet. I want to put it on a base, and I've been painting up the figures for it. So
that was like fun.
That one was fun.
That would be scary to confront the battlefield if it was real.
Yeah. And then this one I've been working on for a long time. I'm at the point where I'm getting ready to put metallics on it. And that was the Death Dealer.
Yep.
And I lighted his eyes. So I put an LED in his helmet there, and his eyes will glow red.
Nice.
So he's still a work in progress. And I'm working on a Ford tri-motor. I'm gonna go ahead and wire him all up. It's just a cheap Revell or monogram kit. So I've got all the windows taped over and just painted it, and I'm gonna run very, very small piano wire for the cabling, because all the cabling on these airplanes were all external. Nothing was ever internal on these. So it makes for an interesting.
You're going to paint it, or sorry, any specific markings you're going to use on it?
I don't remember. what happens when you're 56 years old. You forget what you're going to do.
Yeah, memory like a steel sieve. I say that all the time. It retains everything you don't need at the time that you need it or don't need it. I can't remember.
I have that kit in the stash, and I really want to do it as Lao Chi Airlines.
Oh, that would be good.
Yeah.
And then I got this. It's from the Fantasy line, which was Verlinden, but it's these pirates, these little pirates.
Ah.
Huh. Huh. Looks like the Pirates from the Caribbean.
Yeah, they're little resin figures, and like I said, it's from a Verlinden type, an offshoot called Fantasy.
Oh.
And, I thought they were pretty cool, but I'm still working on it. Still trying to
miss that company. Miss that company. They make some great stuff.
Yeah. I still have the box. I can show you the box. Because I use the box as my reference for the painting anyway. So.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So.
Nice.
That's pretty much it.
Jolly Roger. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
I have a whole stack right here that I got in boxes that I'm working on.
Not in any specific order.
Yeah. Like this Honda. Been working on this Honda here. It's pretty much it's pretty much built. I'm at the point where I'm going to put the decals on it.
Oh, really?
But yeah, here's the engine.
Oh, nice.
Mm.
Yeah, that's very detailed, and there's no wiring or anything on that. That's just Tamiya's detail that they put on this thing. And then here's the chassis. And then the body. So I mean, I'm just at the point where I'm going to put the decals on. So, but it's a fun little kit. I tried to do it as a 48-hour build, and I just ran out of time.
That would do me. That would keep me going for about 48 weeks.
Yeah, I know. And then I'm building a Tiger, but everybody's seen Tigers. This one's kind of a nice kit too that I'm still working on. It's the Admiral Cabriolet. This kit right here.
Oh.
Oh, yes.
So I did wire the engine up on that one. I tried to find as many photographs on the internet to accurize it as possible. So that's what I'll do. I'll take pictures like of the chassis, because I was looking for the motor mounts, because one thing ICM forgot to do was give you front motor mounts for the engine. Yeah, so I had to create them. Here's the frame, and then the white plastic is nice. It's the rear motor mount for the transmission.
So what did they think you had to put the engine on? I mean,
exactly. So
a body panel or something.
And here's the engine. So
nice.
I wired it. And then the body. So I'm at the point where I'm ready to paint the body.
Mm-hmm.
And see, I got one more, but it's way on the bottom. But that's pretty much it.
All right, very cool. Very cool. Keep an eye on your mailbox in the next couple of months. I'm going to try to get new shop cards out. It's going to be different ones. Did you see the last show? I think it was 2 weeks ago. I was talking about it. I have your address, so I'm going to send one off to you. Yeah, so I got to get them printed first.
Okay.
But the shop cards are wonderful, and there's some guys were asking, can I use it in my video? Sure, go ahead. And it's been creeping up in places where I didn't expect it to creep up, and it took about a year for it to happen. But if you want anybody in the earshot, if you want a shop card, you can email me your snail mail address. I'll pay the postage and for the card. It's entirely free. Send your snail mail address to my email address, scratchandjackmodels@gmail.com. Because I'm going to come out with new ones, and if you inquire in the next couple of months, you'll get 2 in 1. Here's the Harrier jet that I found.
Ah,
very nice.
Look at the shipping go. Oh, what happened? What did I do?
I do want to say how much I enjoyed your was it Wonderfest or Wonderfest videos that you came out with, Jack. I thought those were done very nicely.
Oh, thank you. I was trying to bore you. Did I manage that?
Nope.
Ah, shoot.
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed every minute of those videos. They were very good.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. There's a lot more on the editing room floor, but I figured that I couldn't put a narrative to it, so I
Yep.
It's the first time I ever did anything like that, because when I walked into that room, I wanted to create something. Ultimately, they'll have some sort of story behind it, because after all, human beings are storytellers, and I'm certainly one of them.
Yes.
And I just want to tell a story. And going next, instead of spending 2 hours in the room, the next time I'm going to spend as much of a day as I can. I spent too much time and money in the dealer market. So yeah, talk about get back to point here, the Harrier jet. This is actually a very cool jet. I gotta say, this is probably one of my favorites, only because it doesn't look like what it actually does. And at the same time, it's got that boisterous front end, making it look much more aggressive than the other jets. It's not like thin and sleek. It's sort of like a difference between, I guess, a Irish setter and a bulldog. And this is the bulldog. The best comparison I can make. But this build by Stuart is just incredibly interesting, because of the chipping that he did on the paint. Oh, look at that!
That was a machine flown by Sharky Ward in the Falklands.
Oh, okay.
You can even see the figure there has Sharky's beard.
Oh, yeah. That's good.
And those planes saw a heck of a lot of wear and tear in the South Atlantic, because it was just coming into the winter.
Yeah.
When they went down there.
It is a good picture right here. That's a very good picture right here. I like this one the best. I don't know, Stuart. You got pretty close to being. Well, maybe you can become community cover next time. Who knows? Maybe I'm giving it away too soon. So your wife says we're a little mature, huh?
More mature.
More mature. George says mature? Mature? I thought he'd probably say manure. Difference is one letter. Certainly. Thank you for stopping by, Stephen, because you and I have been I wouldn't say messaging directly to each other, but we sure as hell are tripped by the same posts.
Yeah.
And it's just, it started to get really boring, quite frankly. So it has nothing to do with modeling. That's the point I'm making.
Right.
I find modeling much more interesting, even though I don't make as many comments because it doesn't trip my wire because the stupidity on the other side of subjects on Facebook are just like
right. And I try to avoid those as much as possible. I think we all do that. We're kind of tired.
Like I said, I went to Home Depot to look around. And I end up spending $80. Same thing. I go to Facebook to look around, and I end up getting in trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So really, very much thank you for spending some time with us. Now we know that if you are around, you're not making any money. You're spending it.
Yes, exactly. Just like the rest of us.
Right. Thanks for the share too, as well, for it, for the same thing. Let's see, Stephen. You gotta put something up that's gonna make community cover. So, you know what our builds are: naval, real space, wooden.
Yep.
I'm trying to do my spell on you. So that goes for everybody watching, either in rerun or live. We do have the community builds. Please participate. When I get back to it, and particularly in the fall, I'm going to attempt my wood build. I did a naval build already, but I don't want to show it off because it's really that crappy. But I did show off a 72 scale Corsair. That counts. This is Navy. Anyway. Thanks for joining us, Randall, as always.
You're welcome, Jack. Anytime.
And a lot of good facts about that mission between Soyuz and the Apollo. Thank you so much. I took notes. They might appear on the video description. Jim, for stopping by too and telling us the Modeler's prep kit for electronics, power supplies, multimeters, you know what I mean.
Oscilloscopes.
Oscilloscopes. Think of a loss of laughter or something. I don't know. It doesn't make any sense. Yeah. And of course, Bob Busking did show up. He is working, and he had to go back to work. There was Frankie that showed up, and Ken Skiffington also did. Mark had to get to bed. He had 4 hours left to get some sleep in before going off to work tomorrow. It is, after all, late in the UK, and Randall can vouch for that. I think his caffeine is starting to wear. And, of course, the mayor of the live chat, George, thank you for stopping by as well, for participating. You're welcome. It was another great show. I'm glad you think so. And I'm glad you're able to be a part of it in the capacity that you are, because without you, there wouldn't be a live chat. Or it will be a chat, but it won't be necessarily live. Anyway, he said he used, Ken Skiffing said he used SMDs for his Terminator build. He didn't use fiber optics, so he used SMDs. All right, enough of that. 2 weeks on Saturday, we'll have the Across the Pond, and that will be Saturday, July 21st, and that's Mom's birthday, actually. And July 22nd, 2 weeks from today, will be the Sunday Hangout. Until then, happy modeling, everyone, and good night.
Good night.
Good night.